So hi guys, I hope you're doing well. My name is Nander and today I'm going to talk about social psychology a little bit. So I want to introduce you to some theories, key concepts, and just to give you a general overview of what social psychology is. So first of all, let's discuss what social psychology is. So social psychology is, by definition, a science that tries to objectively measure behavior in a group. Not only to measure, but to predict behavior and to find correlations. It relies on a lot of different tools, both experimental and non-experimental tools. Non-experimental method of data collection consists of case studies, surveys, or archival research, for example. Social psychology reports a lot of phenomenon that seems contradictory initially to the observer. Based on this notion, I would like to share with you some of my favorite experiments that show this weird phenomenon. One is the story of the 5 monkeys. In this study, 5 monkeys were locked together in a cage. They were given food on a plateau. So, in order for the monkeys to reach the food, they had to climb up for it. However, each time an individual monkey started to climb towards the food, the whole pack got sprayed with cold water. Eventually, the monkeys realized what's going on and started pulling back the monkey whoever was going towards the food. Eventually, they stopped spraying them and the behavior of the monkeys remained in the group. Every time a monkey would go for the banana, the others would pull the individual back to the pack. The study went on and they started exchanging the monkeys, one by one. However, the phenomena remained, and they were still pulling the monkey back, even though none of the original members remembered why this pattern of behavior was adopted initially. Another example for this interesting phenomena is the research done by Sheriff on informational social influence. So in this experiment, they projected a light in a dark room that did not move. There were two phases of this experiment. In phase number 1, people individually had to go there, observe the light, and had to make a judgment whether it moves or not. In case they went there alone, they could make the correct assumptions based on their observations. The second phase of the experiment was when there was a group of individuals who entered the room. Some of these individuals were pre-told to say that the light is moving. In this case, some individuals had the tendency to deny the initial observations and claim that the light was indeed moving as the other people were saying it. So as you could see in all these experiments, there is a difference how an individual makes decisions and how an individual, once put into a social interaction, makes decisions. So we have to make the distinction between social persona and identity persona. Some original concepts about the social persona already come from Wundt's work when he started to talk about the collective self. An elaborated idea upon this is symbolic interactions among selves. So an example of that would be the usage of language. Another interpretation of the same problem is the looking glass self theory, which talks about how we use others to see ourselves. Contemporary ideas in social psychology circulate around uncertainty avoidance, attributes, and self-awareness. One idea that most theories have in common is their emphasis on uncertainty avoidance. According to this, individuals do not like uncertainty and they do everything to avoid it, hence the term. An elaborated idea upon this is the terror management theory, which focuses around the idea that individuals are innately afraid of death and hence they join in social interaction to avoid uncertainty. Another key factor that most of these theories have in common is their emphasis on attributes. The concept of an attribute is giving a meaning or a reason behind a certain behavior or action. Another topic that all of these theories circulate around is the concept of self-awareness, self-knowledge, and the concept of self-schemes. So currently, the three most commonly accepted theories are social role theory, social categorizational theory, and social identity theory. All of these theories have the above-mentioned three concepts in common in them. However, they approach social psychology from different angles. Social role theory is based on evolutionary ideas, so it approaches the question what people or humans as species had to do in order to survive, and accordingly what roles they had to fulfill. Hence the term social role theory. Social categorizational theory approaches the question from a cognitive perspective. It applies cognitive concepts like patterns and how people think in patterns and hence identify, categorize, and compare different patterns of behavior. Social identity theory goes further with this notion and applies the idea that people, in order to have a self, have to have a concept of role in the society. So both social identity theory and social categorizational theory talk about scripts and stereotypes. Scripts are usually related to situations, so certain patterns of behavior, while stereotypes are related to certain individuals. So this is a cognitive compartment of these theories. So how we have certain scripts for certain situations and how we have certain stereotypes for certain individuals. These theories state that prejudice comes from this basic way of thinking, so from these scripts and stereotypes, just we attach a negative emotion to these stereotypes, hence the term prejudice. Then we can talk about discrimination that comes from prejudice, though it's the behavior. So prejudice comes from dogma according to these theories. What is dogma, you might ask? Well, dogma is defined as a cognitive, rigid, intolerant way of thinking that makes perception of other people in a prejudged manner. So dogma results in closed-mindedness. How you can recognize dogma, you might ask. Well, it has certain characteristics. It's actually quite difficult to spot one. One of its characteristics is the mindless repetitions. Think of slogans or sayings or proverbs. However, dogma is a mindless repetition of certain slogans without much thinking about them. They have the tendency to be quite elusive, as they are also capable of escaping into exceptions, and they are quite flexible when we talk about them. Like, everybody is so and so except him cuz. So it is quite difficult to realize what a dogma is and what being consistent is. Anyway, all schemas and scripts that we have are a fuzzy set, meaning that they are capable of change. It can change gradually or it can change quickly. There are some technical terms that I'm going to share with you now. Bookkeeping is when it changes gradually based on a lot of previous experience. So bookkeeping reflects a gradual change in a schema. However, sudden conversion, as the name entails, it's a sudden change or shift due to gradual accumulation of previous experience. Then we also have the idea of subtyping when we have a schema, though it seems to be inconsistent or contradictory, so we make two schemas based upon it. Apart from these interesting ideas, there are a lot of different factors that influence our decision making when we are in a social settings. For example, how we have the tendency to make illusory correlations, or we make illusory associative matching.